Hello everyone, welcome back to the full stack course. In this specific lecture, we will be seeing how to delete a specific question as well. And then in the next lecture, we will be seeing how to delete a specific answer. Most of the things are similar to both deleting and deleting a question as well as deleting an answer. So now, see, we have to show this delete option is if this question which was asked by a person will match a specific user which has been logged in. So the user who has been logged in only be able to delete his question. So only the user who has posted a question matches the user who has logged in will be able to delete a specific question, and in particular to answer if the user who has logged in matches the user who has posted an answer, only will be able to delete his question. So it's like if I post question or an answer, only I can delete that specific question or answer. No other of men can delete my answer or my question. So we will change a few things in the front end before we are just going to start. So first we will go to the questions details, and in here in here this is the button where which allows us to delete a particular question. In here first we will be having a condition first. So we'll be having curly braces. If we want to use JavaScript inside JSX, we have to use curly braces, and we will use the user dot optional operator. So sorry, optional selector. This is going to select the result of the user and the ID of that specific user. If that ID matches the question dot user ID, then what we can do, we can return a particular tag which is gonna be this button tag. So we will just put it here, and that's it. If the logged in ID matches the question's user ID, then we can delete a particular question. And in here eventually we will add an on click event handler to handle the delete. So first we will concentrate on the backend part to how to delete a question. So we will write the backend script to delete a specific question. First we will go to the routes. In there we will be going to the questions. In here we will be having a piece of line which is going to be like router dot delete of slash delete slash id, and this is going to be a colon id. I will explain it. Wait for that, and we will pass the function delete question. As of now, no, the delete question is not yet being declared, so it will throw an error eventually. So if you see here, we don't want to write two separate lines in order to import. We can just write everything in the same line. We can just have curly braces, and inside that we can put ask question controller as well as get all questions controller from questions controller. So in here we have used a delete method or a delete request in order to delete a question. So along with the URL, we are just sending the ID of the specific question which has to be deleted, and we don't need any other parameter to delete a question. So now we will import this delete question from the controller questions. So we will paste it here, and we will now go to the controllers. In here we will go to the questions. Here we will be writing the logic for deleting question. Export const delete question, which is going to be async of request comma res. This is going to be this. In here we same thing, we just going to have a try catch block, And in the try block we're just going to first have, before the try block, first we will just retrieve the data, which is nothing but const id. It's also going to be renamed as I underscore id, which we have done earlier in many lectures as well. And then we're just going to retrieve that id from request.params. I have already told what is request.params, which is nothing but the parameter available in the url. So we're just going to select the id parameter from the url. So that's why we have given a colon and id in the url as well. And what we're gonna do first, we will check is the id is a valid mongodb id. So we have already written some code in the auth, I think so. Yes, this thing, we will just copy that specific code and we will put it down here. So as soon as I get the id from the params, I'm just checking is it a valid MongoDB mongoose types ID. So if it is not a valid one, we will just send the question is unavailable. If it is a valid one, we will just start what we want to do. So we're just going to say await questions, which is nothing but the schema which we have used, and dot find by ID and remove. Sorry, find by id and remove. Just going to say find by id and remove. So what this find by id and remove does, we will pass a specific id. So if this id is matched in the record, it will just remove that record from the schema called questions. So that's it, which is really simple to remove question from the database. So now we will send res dot status dot status of 200 dot json of message, which is going to be equals to successfully deleted, like so. So if there is an error, we will just catch that and we will just throw it in the front end. Like so, the status is going to be like 404, which means the question is not found in the database. There's no specific id like that, and we will just send the message. This is going to be this is going to be like error dot message, like so. Now, which is really simple to delete a specific question from the backend. So this is all the backend code which we are going to use. So let me close everything now. Close everything and this too. So now we will open the client. In there, first we will be going to the pages and questions and the question details. In here we will be having this delete button, which is going to trigger our delete action. So now here I will just going to have the on click event. Before handling this, we will just write the action to delete a specific question. So we will go to the questions. In here I can write something to handle delete. Before that, we will be writing the API first. So we will go down here. In here we will just say export const, which is going to be equals to delete question, which is going to be equals to an arrow function. And in here I'm just going to pass the id as well, and I'm just going to use the API, which is nothing but the url dot get. We're just going to send the delete request, and then the url goes like this, delete, and I'm just going to use this backtext to format that specific id. As we have done in the previous lectures, we will format that id in here. So now the URL is really simple, we are just going to delete, as well as we are just going to have the id next to that. So I think here I have left the questions also. we have to include that questions slash delete, which is nothing but our URL to delete a specific question. So now what we can do, we can go to the actions questions.js. In here we can write a specific action to delete a particular question. So then I'm just going to say export const delete questions, which is going to be equals to, in here I'm just going to get id comma navigate from the from the from the questions details file. I'm just going to get the id and navigate, and this is in turn going to be equals to async dispatch, because we're just going to have sorry we're just going to have redux thunk. So that's why we are using async dispatch, which is nothing but a syntax for redux thunk as well. And in here what I'm just going to have is nothing but a try catch block. So in there I'm just going to say const data, which is going to be from the backend, which is going to be equals to api dot delete question delete questions of id. I'm just going to pass the id from the front end to the backend, and through this API I'm just going to get the data, which is nothing but an array a message which just tells us is the it's just going to tell us is the data has been successfully deleted or not. So I'm not just going to dispatch the type as post answers, because we don't need that, because we're just going to call this function fetch all questions, which gonna do all the specific things what we're gonna have. This function will send a major request to the database, and what the database sends is nothing but the entire record which is present in the questions database. So we will just dispatch this thing to the backend as well. And since we got the navigate, so why we are using the navigate in here, as soon as I delete this specific question I don't want to remain in this page, because this page is going to be deleted because the question id is in here. So I have to be routed to this or navigated to this home page. So that's why we are going to use navigate of slash. So now we have been routed to that front home page, and if there is an error we will just say console.log of error, and that's it. We have done the action also, and we will go to the question details, and in here we are just going to have an on click event, which is going to be equals to handle delete. So now we will copy this handle delete, and we will just use this event handler to handle const on delete, which is going to be equals to an arrow function, which is going to just dispatch of, I'm just going to call this delete question function, delete question of, I'm just going to pass the id comma history, I'm just going to pass this navigate in here. So we have to input this navigate and this delete question. So you can see in here this delete question has been wrongly imported from this API. We don't want it from the API, we need it from the controller. So we will say controllers. So I think there is another, sorry, I think we have to get it from the actions. Sorry, controller is the part with which deals with backend. I have wrongly spelled that. So actions is going to be from questions. So since here is already I'm exporting it from the action slash question, I can just have this delete question in the same URL itself. So and I can save a piece of code, and we're gonna also use navigate to do that. So navigate is being used in here. In here I'm just going to pass this with a capital N. So that's it, we have done with this handle delete also. So as soon as this button has been clicked, handle delete function will be triggered and the question will be deleted from the database itself. So now we will go in here. In here we will just go to this function. Here we don't see this delete because let me just log out and log in. I think is there any error in the, so it is now being logged out. So let me refresh. So I think there is some error in the logout. So we will go to the applications and we will go to the local storage. So that's where we do have all the data. So now it is already in here, but as soon as I click this logout, it is not being handled. We will just go to that specific navbar in the components. In here, so in here there is no logout function because I didn't, not yet, I haven't completed the logout. So that's why this application is not being logged out. So I have again messed up. There is no logging out function. I haven't done that yet. So now we will first deal with that specific logout. So that is why this thing uh, is not being detected. So this ID didn't match with that specific ID. So what we can do, we will implement this logout later. So first we will just delete this profile. So now it should be logged out because we have deleted that. So now we will go to login and we will log in um, with our Gmail ID. So now we have logged in, and now we will go to a specific question like this. In here it doesn't shows the specific delete function. So we will go to the database. We will see in here there is no user ID. So that's why the error is being thrown. We do need to have the user ID in the database, in the record. So that's how we can match with this exact user ID. So we will now go to that specific location in the data in the backend. Let me close all the things. There's no error in the uh, front end itself. There's something to deal with the server. We will go to the, so here is the user ID. We have declared that in the schema. So where we have given data for this user ID, while asking the question, this user ID has to be provided. So that's how it will work. So first let me go to the controllers in questions. So here is the asking your particular question. In here the user ID goes like this: request dot user ID. So this user ID, I think this user ID doesn't exist in this request. So what we can do, we can just get that user ID from the request.body itself, from the front end itself. So we can just remove this thing as well as this entire thing. We will just send the post question itself. So we have done the same thing while posting an answer also. So we will go to the same thing in here. So I think we are also sending the user ID in here. So no problem, we will get this user ID from the uh, front end itself. So here let me just say user ID. So let me copy this user ID and remove this, and let me just paste it in here. So we will get this user ID from the front end itself. So how we can do that? So we will go to the front end again. So now we will go to the client in here. So we have to go to the location where we are asking a particular question. So to do that we have to go to the ask question. So in here we will, as soon as this button has been clicked, the handle submit will fire up, and then we are providing the username. You can see like that we can provide the user ID also. So I can just say user ID is going to be equals to user dot. So I can use optional selector if there is an error which will be thrown. So that's why we can use optional selector, or you may not use also underscore ID. So I'm just going to get the user ID from this user um, store, which has been called in here by using use selector. We have selected that particular state and we are using that specific users data. So since we are providing name in here, we are also providing the ID also. So now we have to go to this ask question action to rectify this specific thing. So we will go to this action questions. In here here is the ask question and ask question, and there is no problem in here because we are passing the entire data, as well as we have to see in the index, because as soon as we call this post question, as well as we will pass this question data which has been got here, it will be passed here and it has been sent. So now there is no problem with the question. As question has been done, now we will see, while now we will go where we are posting the answer. So where we are posting our answer, we are posting it inside the questions, which is inside the questions details. In here there will be a form to post my answer. So you can see this is the form and this is the function which is going to handle this on submit. So we will go to that specific function. So here is the handle submit, sorry, handle post answer function. In here I'm just going to get the data from the front end as user answer. So like the same thing, I'm just going to say user id, which is going to be equals to user dot results dot underscore id, result underscore id, which is nothing with the user id. So now everything is set. We will be able to get the delete functionality everywhere. So not everywhere, since the already posted questions doesn't have an user id, we won't be delete all these questions directly, because we will go to this question, there is no delete functionality. Since it is also being the same user, I am the user has been logged in and I am the user who is asking the question, but there is no delete function has been shown. This is because there is no user id record for this records. So there is no user id key in the database collection for our specific, for all the records, but for a new record there is going to be that user id. So we will check that. So we will go to that, we will close this console log, we will go to that home page and we will ask a new question. In here I'm just going to say question with, sorry, with user id. In here also I'm just going to say user id. In the external, sorry, in the tags also we're just going to say some random thing, and I'm just going to post my question. You can see here is the new question. We will go inside. Now delete functionality is still available. You can see delete functionality is still here, and in here you can see this question has been asked a few seconds ago, which is pretty cool for us. So we got this delete question because we will go to the database, we will refresh these records. So we will go down. So now you can see this is the new question I have asked with the question title, question with user id. You can see here is the specific user id who has asked the specific question. So now in our application, the logged in user matches exactly the same with the asked user. So now delete functionality is here. So now I'm just going to click this delete, and now here is no here is the same thing, but I have been navigated in here, but the question still remains in the front end. Now let me just see. As soon as I refresh, it is not being it is not in the, sorry, it is not being in the front end now. As soon as I refresh, and let me just refresh in here also, let me just refresh the record. So now you can see there is no question of sign for that question, because it is not, because the question title was question with user id, like so. So it has been deleted from the database, but the problem is it is not getting automatically removed from the user interface unless and until I refresh. So we will fix that. What is going to be that issue? We will see that what is that supposed to be. I think I have done the same thing once again in the UI, I think so. Let me just open the inspect elements. So I will go to the console log. So I think I have done the same error which we have done in uh, previous lecture what we have discussed. So let me just ask a question. Will post any contents. So now this question will has the user ID. If we go in, you can see I can see this delete functionality in here. As soon as I delete, it is still in the database, but there is no, sorry, it is still in the UI, but there is no error so far now. So it is just being in the UI, it is not being just erased from the UI. So we will see what the error is supposed to be inside the actions, I think so. In the questions, so this may be because I didn't dispatch this data, specific data, so that could be a reason. But if this function has been called, so let me just have console.log in here to experiment that. Fetched, we'll just say fetch data. So as soon as I delete that specific question, the as soon as I delete, if it shows fetch data, which means it is not in the we are just retrieving a new data from the backend, but it is not being removed from the front end. So we will see, we will ask a particular new question, we will review the question. You can see the new question is in here. Now we will go to that specific place and we will just delete. So now you can see it is not in the UI. So it is just a bit of delay from the database, because since our database is a shared hosting, because we have already deployed this database in MongoDB cloud. So this may be due to a network delay, because we didn't pay for this mongodb.com website, we are just using it for free. So then this, if we pay, they will give us dedicated server for us. Since we are not paying that, this is a shared hosting, we don't receive that much specific time. So that's why it is like this. So also I can ask as many as questions I want and review my question. So here's the new question, you can see. Now here I go and I will delete. So now it is being removed from the UI itself. So our delete functionality is now over. So now we will see how to delete a specific answer. So to do that, we'll just close this and we will go to the code, and let me just open, we will just go to the backend part. So deleting answer is going to be quite similar but quite different from the deleting a specific question. So first we will go to this routes and we will go to the answers. Here we will just create a new route for our deleting action. Sorry, answer. Router dot patch. So you may ask a doubt in here, why I am using patch. I have to use delete request, but since we are not deleting an entire record, so while in the case of question we are just removing the entire record from the database itself, but for deleting a specific answer we are just going to update the question record by just removing the answer key from the record. So let me just go to the database. In here, this is the entire record for a particular question. So if I want to delete this specific question, I can just delete this record itself. But I want to delete a specific answer, so we will just go here. If I want to delete this first answer, I don't want to delete this entire record. I just want to remove this first object in the array. So there's a difference between deleting and updating. So in this case, I'm just updating the record without this object. I'm just going to update the record without this object. But in case of this is in case of deleting an answer, I'm just going to update the record without an object. But in case of deleting a question, I have to remove this entire record. So that's what the meaning I have to convey here. So that's why we are using a patch request, which means updating a specific record in the database. We're just going to say delete. Also we're gonna have the column id corresponds to a specific question in the database, and here I'm just going to call delete answer. So now we will import this delete answer from answers.js into the controllers. So now we will create this delete answer in the controllers itself. Here we have to write export const delete answer, which is going to be an async because we're dealing with the backend. So we're dealing with the database, and then I'm just going to have the id, which is going to be removed. So this is id. This id is nothing but the id of a specific question which we are going to delete. Sorry. In here we will just receive the request response from the front end. From the front end. Yes, from the front end. We're just going to receive the request response from the front end as we have done in here. So first we will get const id, which is going to be renamed as underscore id, which is going to be from request dot params, and then we're just going to say const answer id and then number of answers. That's it. This is going to be equals to request dot body. So I will explain what I have done. So we are just getting the answer id and the number of answers. So we have to, after deleting an answer, we have to, of course we have to update the number of answers. So if it is actually 5 answers are literally present to a particular question, if we delete a specific answer, then it has to be changed to 4 answers. So that's why we are getting the number of answers in there, and the answer id, which is nothing but, if we go to the database, so here is the answer array. So if I want to delete this first object, which is nothing but has an index value of 0, it has an object id. You can see here is an object id. So this object id I'm just going to get from the front end, and I'm just going to use this specific id to delete this specific object from the answer array. So that's what I'm gonna do. So in here, after retrieving that from the front end, we will check first this id is a valid question. So first we will copy this code and we will do it again. So we will first check, is this the valid id? If it is a valid question id, so we are just going to check that, and then if it is not a valid thing, we're just going to say question unavailable, and we are just going to do the same thing. And here we're just going to check, is answer id is a valid, is it a valid answer? If that is not a valid answer, then we're just going to say answer unavailable, like so. So we have checked both of the IDs, the question ID as well as the particular answers ID. Then now we're just going to update the number of question, because since we are deleting your answer, the number of answers will be reduced to by 1. So I'm just going to say the question ID comma number of answers, and then I'm just going to use a try catch block to delete a specific answer from the database. In here, if there is an error, I'm just going to send res dot status of 405, and I'm just going to send JSON of error. So in the try block, what I'm gonna do, I'm just going to say await. Since we are dealing with the backend, we have to, and this is an asynchronous operation, we have to use await. So we will be able to send a message to the database, and we are just using the questions schema dot update 1. So here we are not using find by id and remove, which we have used to delete a question, but in here we are just going to use update 1 method to delete the specific answer. Or instead of saying like I'm deleting an answer, I can say I'm just going to update that answer array without a specific element in that. So that's what in here is it means. So update 1 means we are just going to find a particular question, and we are just going to update only one value in that. So in the update 1, I can write a query like underscore id. I can just going to pass the id, which is going to be found. So this id is going to be found first in the question schema, and then the second parameter is going to be like a query, and for that query, corresponding query will be used to update the value of this specific record in this question schema. So in here, I'm just going to say pull dollar pull of answer of another set brackets. In here, I'm just going to say the id is like answer id. So what this query actually means, let me explain. Pull is nothing but used to pull a specific id from this array answer. So answer is nothing but the array in the database. If you see, answer is an array, it has been depicted as an array. So what I'm gonna do, I'm going to find a specific id in this answer. So each object has a specific id. You may see this first object has a id of 6197, like so. So I'm just going to give this id, and I'm just going to say if you match this specific id, then pull this record from the answer array. So I'm just going to say pull this 0th element from the answer.
கால் விஷயமா கால் போயிருக்கான் என்ன சொல்கிறேன் என்ன சொல்கிறேன் கொஞ்ச நேரம் கழிச்சு பேசுகிறேன்
So give me a second. So guys, I am back now. Where I have left. So what this pull property does, it just matches the specific id in the answer array, and it will just pull it out. So it means we are just deleting that specific element in this answer array, and that's it. We're just going to update it in the questions database. So that's all this query means, which is really simple. Just it may confuse you, but just understand once, you can use it many times.